What's up, everybody? I'm here in Brazil. I'm actually on a farm here in Brazil. My buying trip here in Brazil of April 2025. We're going to talk about an important topic today. The subject of this video is something that I've touched on in prior vlogs, which is why is everything so expensive now in terms of the crystal and mineral industry business? Why are crystals so expensive now? It's a common theme that I've heard throughout Tucson this year, a couple months back. Everybody's complaining about prices and this and that. And so I've touched on it before, just a little bit here and there in different vlogs, like where I'm at the shows or something like this. But we're going to make an in-depth video here talking about what's going on and why exactly everything's so expensive. I'm going to break this video down into sections, and with each section I'll go in depth as to what's going on and give you guys my take on it, my opinion. Essentially everything I say is just my opinion, although I will take things that I know to be true, also include my own personal experiences being a mineral dealer and traveling around the world and knowing what's going on behind the scenes as well as in America at the shows. So yeah, guys, let's go. Let's dive into the subject here. This is something that I should have touched on a while back. I want to shed light on why everything's so costly now, like everything else in the world. Before we dive into the subject and get real serious about it, because it is a serious subject, I want to show you guys this awesome beautiful farm that I'm on, with a pool and a house and a guest house and a main house over there and a kitchen and a churrascaria, a barbecue place. And look at this view right here, guys. Oh my gosh, this is so amazing. Oh, you see these mountains, this whole mountainous area. This is pretty much all of the state of Minas Gerais. It's very hilly, mountainous. They're foothills, essentially. They're not high altitude mountains, although there are some mountain peaks that kind of pop up. But for the most part, they're just they're foothills that are just so magnificent. And this is why I like doing this. This is why I like being in this business, because I like traveling. Traveling was a big part of why I got into this to begin with. Look at this beautiful plant. This amazing, I forgot what you call these. Bird of paradise? No, this is something else. But that's so freaking beautiful. There's the farm dog. He's so friendly. Come here, boy. He's so cool. Hey! We just fed him, actually. Oh, you're such a sweetheart. He always wants more food. All right, let's go say hi to the horse. Oh, she's a sweetheart. Yeah, it's really cool. I fed them yesterday, and today they're just kind of chilling, kind of just hanging out here. Alright, guys, so we're going to start now and talk about the meat of this subject as to why minerals and crystals are so expensive now. We're going to really get into it. I'm going to break it down into 5 sections, 5 parts as to why minerals and crystals are so expensive now, why everything is so high in price. And this is something that I heard in Tucson, this last year in Tucson a couple months ago, from people complaining about, oh my gosh, everything's so expensive, I can't buy anything. Actually, I was surprised. I was surprised that it took so long for Tucson to catch up to what the reality is. The country of origin for each mineral, if you were to go to that country, the price was already high 2-3 years ago in the past. Tucson took some time to catch up because I think people were working with old material. People were, backstocked with stuff they got 10 years ago. So they're still selling it at a price, that 10 years ago price. And now everything is caught up. 5 different categories. I'm going to try my best to break it down into 5 different categories. The first one is going to be supply and demand. Demand has been higher than ever now, and supply is lower than ever. It's kind of funny how that works. Demand has skyrocketed, and really we have to go back 5 years ago to COVID, 4 or 5 years ago to COVID. COVID changed everything in terms of supply and demand. A lot of it is also being driven by social media and Instagram, etc. But that all kind of ties together here. We're going to talk about all that. So COVID happened. Demand for minerals and crystals blew up out of nowhere. It just kind of it just blew up. People wanted to get into it for numerous different reasons. Maybe people were kind of sad and depressed at the time, and they saw crystals and minerals as kind of like like something to ease their suffering of being, in lockdown, or they're getting into the more spiritual and the metaphysical. COVID changed everything because COVID taught people how to buy and sell online. That's the thing. Prior to COVID, people weren't buying and selling online as much, but since COVID happened, they really started doing that on a big scale. And I'm talking about mostly live sales, Instagram live sales, Facebook live sales, TikTok live sales, etc. These things were happening before COVID. People were doing these things, but really it was more of the traditional, like Etsy shop. Like I had an Etsy store. It was more of the traditional websites where people would, post listings on their websites, and then you would buy from their website, and your product would be shipped to you. Then when COVID happened, everybody turned online, and people were just getting comfortable buying from scrolling on their Instagram or watching somebody's live sale. That changed a lot. And mind you, minerals and crystals touch on so many different subjects. Minerals and crystals hit so many different. You have the jewelry people, right? And then you have the home decor people, and then you have the interior designers, and then you have the collectors, like the high-end collectors, and then you have the geologists, and then you have the mineralogists, and the people that are really into the scientific aspects of minerals and like collecting because of that, And then of course, you have the metaphysical and the spiritual, which is also a massive. That's a massive factor that kind of blew up the industry as well. So all these different things kind of tied together and really blew up this whole industry of the crystal and mineral business, which created the demand, what we see today, which is higher than ever. All these things kind of generated more popularity for this whole industry. And then now, so the demand shot up, but the supply chain really got hurt. Was really impacted during the COVID times. For example, to ship a container from China pre-COVID was about $5,000. A whole container, you can fill it up to the max. Now it's after COVID, right? Literally a couple months when COVID came in, started, that price quadrupled, $20,000. The cost of transporting goods, the cost of moving stuff around, fuel, energy, everything just shot up. So the cost of mining went up as well. Now, because it's so costly to produce, people are not producing as much as they were in the past. In the past, 10, 15 years ago, you had a very high production, low demand. Therefore, everything was kind of cheap. Everything was not so costly. Now you have a very low production and a very high demand. That creates an increase in price. So that is supply and demand. Also, social media is a big factor in that. So now I want to go into number 2, which is going to be specimen scarcity and hype as well. Good things are hard to find. Okay, we're going to go back into social media here because social media is going to touch into all these different subjects. Let me put it this way. Good things are hard to find. Me, being somebody who's been going to the mines, I've been coming here to Brazil biannually 2-3 times a year. So then I went to Pakistan recently, and I went to the mines as well. I went to the same mine where they found the King of Kashmir, that big, beautiful aquamarine crystal. I think the most expensive one ever sold in Pakistan. Good things are hard to find. And we are bombarded with pretty things and good things on social media, like mostly Instagram here. We're going to use Instagram. I think Instagram is the biggest culprit, but Facebook too, maybe. And an application like Instagram rewards aesthetics. It rewards something flashy, attention grabbing, right? So in the mineral world, what people do is they always showcase, because people want the most. People are trying to get the most attention. They want the most likes. They want the most interactions with their post. It's all about numbers. And so in the mineral world, what you do is you take the prettiest piece you can find, whether it be at a gem show or your own collection, but mostly it's going to be at a gem show. Influencers, walk around the shows, asking people to show their most beautiful piece, to take a photo or whatever, and then they make a real catchy reel or post on Instagram with trendy music, etc. And so IG is flooded with all this kind of content of really good things, because this is what people do. And because Tucson is so convenient, right? Tucson is the global marketplace for minerals and crystals, but it's so convenient because, especially for us in America, you don't have to go anywhere. People bring the stuff to you. People bring things from all over the world to you, and you just have to take a drive out there, if you live nearby, or hop on a plane, but you're not having to go to the mines. You're essentially, we're very spoiled in Tucson with a lot of good things, with a lot of pretty things. And what people do is they go out, they take pictures and videos, put them on Instagram by taking a really pretty video or something of somebody's giant amethyst cathedral, like a 20-footer, or some beautiful tourmaline or something like this. Instagram is flooded with this kind of content, thus creating the false image that this is like the norm, oh, every piece of tourmaline should be this beautiful, every piece of whatever should be this pretty, or this high quality, or this high standard. The reality is that's very, very, very hard to find, especially right now, given that demand is high and supply is very low, and the supply chain is even lower. I'll just give you guys like a ballpark example here. Okay, for every 10,000 pieces of tourmaline, okay, let's say somebody hits a pocket here in Brazil, like in a pigmentite field, inside within a mine, hits a pocket, finds a bunch of tourmaline, a bunch of mica, feldspar, etc., some quartz. For every 10,000 pieces of tourmaline, okay, whether it be this small, this big, or large chunky ones in the matrix with quartz or feldspar, albite, etc., going on it, for every 10,000 pieces, there's probably only going to be 50 to 100 pieces that are okay, that are like A grade, right? Everything else is seconds, and it's in the industry we call that just seconds, B grade leftovers. Out of that 50 to 100 pieces of A grade stuff, there's only going to be like 3 or 4 pieces that are AAA grade, like museum quality. So if you do the math there, what is 3 or 4 or 5 to 10,000? What is the actual percentage there? 0.000. That is how scarce good things are, and that's always how it's been, because mining is a gamble. Mining is like you buy a mine, you purchase the right to mine a certain area. There's different ways. It used to be in the past, people would one company would own the mine, and then they would pay. They would do auctions and bids, like they would hit a pocket and they would stop and they would look inside, and if there was good stuff, they would invite other companies, say, okay, you guys can all bid on this pocket, and whoever wins gets the whole pocket. They take the whole mining season, etc. They do the work. The company that owns the mine does the work, but the company that buys the pocket gets all the product. And so, or you have mines that just, they keep everything in house. They do the mining, the production, and they also sell it themselves. There's different ways, but going back to what I was saying, mining has always been a gamble. It's like walking into a casino. You don't know if you're going to win or lose. More often than not, you lose a lot before you kind of start to break even. And maybe in 5-10 years, you might get lucky and you hit that one pocket and you just get, wow, riches, right? Although that's also kind of rare too. So mining is a gamble. You don't know what you're going to get. But every 10,000 pieces of good tourmalines, of tourmalines, there's only going to be a small handful. And within that small handful, you're going to get 3 to 5 pieces that are museum grade. That's what we are seeing on Instagram right now. We're seeing those 3 to 5 pieces of museum grade as if it's like just the norm, right? This is just the norm. Here in Brazil, I'll give you guys an example. You guys probably haven't heard of this before. There's many people here in this state of Minas Gerais and also neighboring states where a lot of mining was happening 40, 50 years ago. And during that time, there's really no collector value. There was no business. There was no industry in this, in collecting minerals and crystals. This industry is we're not in our infancy anymore, but it is still kind of young relatively young compared to most other businesses around the world, industries, even compared to its neighboring to its cousin industry, which is the gemstone industry, the diamond industry, etc. Those have been around for many centuries. That would be a close relative cousin to that business. This collecting minerals and crystals and mineral specimens has really only been around for the last 20 to 30, 40, maybe 50 years at most. Mind you, the history of this state of Minas Gerais in Brazil starts with the Portuguese, and they were here in the 15 and 1600s looking for gemstones. They had already known there was valuable jewels here in the mountains, and they were doing that way back then. But let's just go back 40, 50 years ago. There were people here mining and stuff, and they were only looking for that really high quality, very clear crystal, whether it be tourmaline or kunzite, emeralds, aquamarines. They only wanted gem grade stuff, so where they could cut and polish. Everything was being faceted. Everything was being cut. Not polished, cut and faceted into gemstones. And anything else that was relatively dirty with inclusions, not so clear, not AAA grade, they would just throw it away. They would literally just throw it away, like in the trash or out in the field. And that was kind of what happened there. When this whole like collector specimen industry blew up, a lot of people here in Brazil who had these pieces that they got for pennies on the dollar, right? Because it was essentially trash back in the day. They sold for a lot of money, got very rich very fast, bought a big house, bought a farm or something, and so now they're pretty well off. So there's countless stories about this, and I hear it every time I come here. This guy, that guy, this guy used to own that mine, that guy, 35 years ago, blah, 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 bought this for $1. Now this thing is worth $20,000, something like this. Traveling to the mines, coming here, the country of origin of these minerals and crystals, reminds me that, hey, it takes a lot of bad stuff to produce one. It takes a whole mountain to produce that one beautiful AAA grade tourmaline, and people are not aware of that. So it's a good reminder every time I come here that, hey, by the way, you're going to see a whole warehouse full of junk before you see that one beautiful gem grade, AAA grade, museum quality tourmaline. Number 3 is going to be really quick here. Rising freight and import costs. Obviously, that's a big factor into what's going on here. If it's more expensive to ship something, the cost is going to be passed down ultimately to me and you. So I know we touched on that already on the first one, but I wanted to re-emphasize that again. So now I want to go into number 4, which is the increasing demand in quality, the increasing demand in better stuff, good stuff. What happened was 10 years ago, when people first started collecting, people were happy with, oh my gosh, look at this, little mass production polishing, little amethyst tower point, little clear quartz tower point, which they're pumping out in China for dollars or whatever, and that was it. That was like, and then they would buy a little amethyst cluster and oh my gosh, beautiful purple crystals, etc. What I'm seeing now is that people's taste, and myself included, people's tastes have evolved, and they've really gone away from, okay, that mass production, general production, tower point from China, from Brazil, or even, cheap things from Madagascar, right? Those cheap freeform polishings, those palm stones, etc. There is a metaphysical value to those where you can use them for metaphysical work. But for the most part, even the metaphysical people are evolving their tastes and their appreciation for minerals, and people are leaning more towards higher end, more rare, one-off pieces, etc. And that's kind of where the whole market is trending towards right now. So people obviously have to stay within the budget, because now we're talking about we go from a $5-10 item to like an item that's in the hundreds, if not thousands, right? But that's where I'm seeing the general trend is going towards. So that, again, going back to supply and demand, the demand for high-end good stuff is very high, but the supply is very low for reasons we just touched on, and therefore, of course, that's going to drive an increase in price in the market. That's also a huge factor. Now let's get into number 5, guys. And number 5 has to tie into social media as well. It's what my friend Mark Cross, he calls the globalization of the market, which essentially is, thanks to social media again, it's kind of globalized the entire market and made it more competitive as a whole. It used to be the miner that lives in the small town, population 100, in the middle of the Himalayan mountains, in the middle of a jungle, in the middle of Brazil or something like this, or in the middle of Africa, with nothing else around him, but 100 other people living in houses made out of sheet metal and wooden sticks and clay, would sell their minerals to the buyers that would be like from Europe or from America, that would be traveling, essentially first world people traveling to second, third world countries and buying from their hands, and then they would bring it back to their respective countries and sell it there. Now, thanks to Instagram, thanks to everybody moving on the social media platforms, thanks to live sales, people are sitting there looking at what somebody else is selling this rock for in America or in Europe, saying, well, why not I just ask that same price? Hell, I could ask even more, right? Why not? And so that's what they're doing now. But what you have is really just this greed, right? This just like intense greed playing out, because some of the people have forgotten that they are actually, they're the wholesalers, right? People that travel, like myself and other people that travel to procure minerals. Now, also, it depends on how you're doing this business. I should preface this. You could be the fine mineral specimen guy, buying the one-off pieces, traveling just to find the good stuff, or you could be the mass wholesale bulk kind of wholesale guy, where you just want to be like the guy with all the big stones and mass quantities of just like cheap stuff, right? And you want to sell to other people that are starting businesses. You want to supply them with, essentially just like cheap wholesale by kilo stuff. It depends on how you're going about the business, but essentially when you're traveling, when you're going to buying, when you're going to the respective countries of the country of origin of the minerals, you're buying wholesale. Whether you're doing, whatever end of the business that you're on, that's why you go. That's why you travel, is to hopefully buy wholesale and get a good deal. But now those wholesalers they want to retail everything. Everything is retail now. Even in Tucson, for example, that's why everything is so expensive in Tucson. Is because people are finding the problems that I just touched on before with supply chains, with low production costs. Low production but high demand, etc. Supply chain issues, freight shipping issues, increasing cost overall of everything. That's all mixed in with the fact that they just want more money. They want to be the retailer when they forgot that they're the wholesaler. There's a lot of greed that comes into play here. I can tell you that for sure. A lot of people here, when I travel here in Brazil and in Pakistan was the worst by far for this kind of like just insane amount of greed. There's a lot of sharks in this industry, especially when you get into the higher end stuff. Some people literally think, and this is still a common theme, some people literally think that just because you're from America or you're from a first world country, that you are automatically rich and wealthy and loaded with money, ready to go to spend it. You have you drive super nice cars, you have a big house, and blah 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 blah, and you're just absolutely loaded. That is completely false, completely untrue. But they don't understand that. They think, oh, just because you're from America, you got to be rich. So you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna give you the gringo tax, and that is something that is true and prevalent throughout any other country that you go to in the second world. You're going to get a gringo tax, which is, it's going to be more expensive for you than it is for somebody else, the same product, the same item. In this business, there's no exception, except it's even worse in this business. I've heard prices that were 10, 20 times what I would consider to be retail. 10, 20 times here. So let's say something is worth $10, okay? They would approach me and I would ask them and I'd say how much, and they would approach me and say, oh, that's my best price for you is $250, and no negotiations, no nothing, just $250. Absolutely insane. Something I wouldn't even sell it for $15 at a show, but they want $250 here, and I came all the way out here. I bought the plane ticket, I paid for the hotel, the all the the nuances, and so it's crazy, but it's true. That's what's really going on. My worst experience was actually in at the little markets in Pakistan with just one guy. He was a young kid. He didn't know what he was doing. And I asked him, I saw a beautiful piece of mica he had, but it's mica, and it's just a little specimen like this big. And it's not anything museum grade. It was just cool. He didn't have anything else. And I wanted to give him some money. I wanted to, I didn't want to walk out there not buy anything, because it's not nice to not at least buy something if you're going to travel. I want to buy something because I'm traveling all the way out here. I need to buy something. So I'm looking at this piece, I'm thinking, well, that's no more than like $30-$40, right? And I'm like, okay, I'll ask him how much it is. So I picked it up and I said, hey man, how much is this? I'm interested. He looks at me and I kid you not, he verbatim, he told me $2,000. $2,000 is what he told me. And he didn't say it to me in rupees, Pakistani rupees. No, he wanted dollars. And that's also a common theme is, those of you in the gem business, dealing with gemstones, you would know that everywhere you go, you work with we always do it in dollars, right? Because everybody wants dollars. So he said $2K, and I'm like, are you? I'm thinking in my head, are you fucking kidding me? Like, are you joking me right now? Like, but it's just greed. It's just literally greedy people that just want to take advantage of you when you travel to these countries. It's just how it is. You get the gringo tax, but then you get some greedy MFers that really just are really just big. There's no other way to describe them as just being MFers. That's it. Like, they're greedy MFers. I remember one guy who I was dealing with. I made some negotiations with him, and I said, okay, I agree on the price, and I leave and I come back, right? I had to go do something. I come back, and he upped the price on me. So now the price is 3 times as much. I'm like, what? Excuse me? I'm sorry. We agreed on this. No. Now it's this much. What you expect me to just open up my wallet and just, okay, here you go? It's crazy. The amount of greed, you would never know it, right? You would never know it if you're just dealing with somebody in Tucson, a dealer in Tucson, and you're just, you're giving them some cash for some rocks, and you go about your day, you do your business. You wouldn't know it, but a lot of people in this business, I've been screwed over. I know a lot of people that have been traveling Brazil have had the same experience I have. And I'm relatively young. Like, I know people that have been coming here for 30, 40 years that know exactly what I'm talking about when people rob and steal the item. There's horror stories about people that you make an order for something and you just don't hear from the guy anymore, or you buy something, you get sent a photo and okay, this is what I'm buying. You send the money over, and when you get the product, it's something completely different, right? Like, not even what you bought. There's so many stories, countless stories. So the globalization of this industry has really caused a lot of greed in people that don't understand business, right? Just business, how to do business. Supplier, wholesaler, middleman, retailer, etc. Like, they just want all the money to themselves. And so that's what we see in Tucson right now, is everybody is just saying, well, let's just ride the greed train because they're doing it, he's doing it. Well, let's just up the average cost overall from $50 a kilo to $200 a kilo, right? And let's just keep it there for everybody because that's the new price now, And so I actually saw this was happening in Brazil 3 years ago. I never talked about it when I was coming out here 3 years ago, but the same things people were whining and crying about on social media about how things are so expensive, I saw that same price here in Brazil. After paying all my travel expenses to come out here, that same price was here 3 years ago, and now it's finally caught up to shows like Tucson and Denver, and the St. Marie show coming up here in June. It is what it is, There's just really no going back now. You just have to kind of stick with. You really have to be selective with what you want to get, as far as if you're buying for yourself or if you're buying for your business. You're trying to supply good things to your clients, your customers. Everybody wants higher quality items now. It's hard to find. It's going to get more expensive. So you really have to pick and choose what you want to do. I've seen a lot of people fall out of this business in just the last couple of years. Every year I see more and more booth spaces empty at these shows. And it's just a common theme that's reoccurring over and over and over. As things get more expensive, it becomes harder for people that aren't well established to survive, that have a business, and it also becomes harder for the collectors on the retail end, the people that just want to get a really nice rock for fair value. Not really that possible anymore. I don't know if that's going to change or get worse, but I know one thing for sure is when people get greedy, they don't usually go back. It's hard for them to go back once they've set a price at this high. They're not going to come back down over time. They're really just going to either keep it the same, or it just keeps getting higher and higher and higher. Now you might be thinking, well, that's good for the miners, right? Well, that means they're getting their equal pay. They're cutting out the middleman, etc. They're getting their fair share. Actually, that's not the case. That's not really what's going on. More often than not, you get a better deal, a better price, a better value from a middleman than you would direct from the mines or from the miner. That is 100% true. You get better prices in Tucson than you would going to the mines, and that with some of those people doing that, or just raising the price in general, they've essentially, because out of pure greed, they've upped the cost of everything in the whole industry. It's actually the opposite of what people think should happen. that pretty much summarizes my theory as to why things are really expensive now. Going back to the number 5 point, middlemen are where you're actually going to find better deals. A lot of people think if they cut out the middleman and they go straight to the source, they're going to get a better deal. Actually, it's not the case at all. It's the complete opposite. Okay, you get a better deal in this business buying in Tucson from a middleman than you would if you traveled here in Brazil or even in Pakistan or Africa to the mines. At the mines, they ask insane, crazy high prices. You get better deals in Tucson. It's crazy. It's counterintuitive, totally, but it's totally true. The mines, when you go to the mines, you pay an absolute premium. They're not going to let it go for cheap. You're going to pay 4 or 5 times what you could have gotten it for in a show like Tucson. So that's something to keep in mind. I know, again, it's counterintuitive, but this is how this business works. I can tell you for sure that I've never gotten a good deal going straight to the mines. Now, then you guys might wonder, well, Frank, why are you still traveling? Why are you still coming to Brazil or still going to Pakistan, etc.? Well, there's a couple reasons actually for that. I like to maintain good relationships with some of the people I have here, whether it be here in Brazil or even Pakistan. I'll eventually go back to Pakistan, but one of the main reasons why I got into this business was actually because of the traveling aspect, because of the nature, because I get to be on my feet, and I love doing that. That's why I chose to hit the road and do shows as opposed to stay at home and do live sales, in my pajamas all day. I cannot, I don't want to be still. I don't want to be rotting away in the house. It kind of makes me go crazy. I like to be outside. I like to be active and moving and on my feet, and just exploring. I love the adventure. This is why I love traveling. So that it fulfills, being in this business, being in this industry, and doing what I'm doing now fulfills that kind of like aspect of me that I've always wanted to express, because it's not cheap traveling. I mean, you can save money, but you're gonna have to pay the bills someday. So if you incorporate the aspect of traveling into your business, and then you just it's kind of a byproduct, right? So I love being on the road. That's why I started the whole video series, on the road with Frank, with Gym Fair. So that's why I do it. If you come here as a first timer, you're gonna have a great experience. Just seeing a new culture, just soak everything up. But I promise you're gonna meet some of these people that I'm talking about, and it's not gonna be a fun experience. It's going to be stressful. You're going to probably question yourself. You might lose money on the trip. There's many trips where I've actually lost money. I haven't made money on. But the value for me is like in the experience itself, and also you never know what's going to happen later on down the road with the connections you make now today. They may not come to fruition for another 5-10 years, but somewhere down the road, something might happen. So it's all a gamble again, and I'm just taking that gamble, I guess, when I come out here and do this. That's why I like to do it. Also, I get to make travel content for you guys, promote my YouTube channel. That's also another factor of why I like doing it. Speaking of YouTube, my YouTube channel recently blew up. I've had a big spike in following. So for those of you guys that just came in, started following me, hi, my name is Frank Zhu. I live in the West Coast USA in California, and I'm a mineral dealer that travels around about 30 to 35 different gym shows throughout the West Coast, including Tucson, Denver. When I'm not traveling, when I'm not on the road doing the shows, exhibiting, being an exhibitor, a vendor, I'm here traveling, sourcing minerals and stuff like that. And I share my whole journey with you guys here on this channel, with this camera here. So that's me in a nutshell. I also make video topics, not just travel vlogs or gym shows, but I also make video topics on spiritual metaphysical work as far as like the minerals and crystals go, and how they can help you metaphysically and spiritually. I also touch on different metaphysical and spiritual topics as well. A lot of those videos are in the past, because I used to focus on that a lot in the past, like pre-COVID, 2016, 17, 18, 19. So if you are a collector, or if you're into minerals and crystals for the metaphysical and spiritual aspect, I actually did that semi-professionally, I guess, training people, teaching people how to work with stones, stone energy. You can look at my past videos on my YouTube channel. You can find videos on different topics like what stone is good for what, how the stone metaphysically, energetically benefits you, etc. You're welcome to check that out. And yeah, that's my take on why everything is so expensive now, why minerals and gemstones are so expensive. It is what it is. I don't think we'll see any change here in the future. I think things are just what they are. In my opinion, go for quality over quantity. That is the name of the game right now. I make sure to get quality, and I honestly, I think everybody should be leaning more towards that anyway. Quality over quantity, always. So that's it, folks. That's my take on what's going on out here. I hope to see some of you guys at the gem shows. Again, my name is Frank. Thank you for watching my channel. Link below, my Instagram. I never like to say this, but please hit like and subscribe. It really does help the algorithm here. And I never like saying that. I mean, it sounds cringy even saying it, but I would greatly appreciate that. List below of the shows I'll be at, and hopefully I'll see some of you guys out there one day. Thank you.